This is episode 33 of the Relentless Man podcast. Unity. Hi, and welcome to the Relentless Man podcast. I'm your host, modjaiso, and my goal is to help men die empty, to make sure that you die having used up every ounce of potential that you have trapped within you, so that when you are on your deathbed, you have no regrets because you gave life your all. In this episode, we're going to be talking about unity, and not really the concept of unity, but rather what unity points to. Now, this episode is going to be different from the episodes we've done before, in the sense that typically in the previous episodes, I used to tell you how things are and tell you what I think about things, but I realized that that is actually not as helpful because it leads to you not uncovering and really finding the truth of things for yourself. And so, because ultimately the words that I speak are not the truth. The truth is what underlies the words. And it's much better if you figure out and understand these things for yourself than if you, let's say, just listen to me and just took what I said on face value without thinking about it for yourself. And ultimately, this is what true learning is anyway. It's thinking for oneself. And as such, it's going to change in the sense that this particular episode, the attitude is going to be different. I'm going to be doing less of telling you things. Rather, what I'm going to do is instead ask you a lot of questions. So we're going to explore together in a sense. So that's a change in the sense that there is no I and you. It's we. We are going to be exploring. We're going to be exploring this question of unity together. It turns out to actually be a core theme of life itself. So let's begin the exploration. The first question we're trying to tackle here is there such a thing as separation? So, for instance, in the world, you're used to saying that, look, I am John, and my name is John, and this is who I am, and this guy is Peter, and that guy is James, etc. So, you're used to thinking of yourself as separate, as an individual. So, then we ask the natural question, are you really an individual? Well, to answer the question, are you an individual, we need to answer the question, what is an individual? Well, is an individual, can an individual be connected to something? So, for instance, if you say that let's say this pencil is separate from this pen, are you saying that the pencil is distinct from the pen? Are you saying that there is space between the pencil and the pen? And in particular, if you're saying that you are an individual, are you saying that you are separate from everything else? That is, there is you, and then there is everything else. Are you saying there is a separation there? And if you're saying that you're an individual, does that mean that you are whole? That is, that you are a unit that is separate from everything else. But if you are indeed separate from, let's say, Peter, okay, you are different from Peter. If you are different from Peter and you are a unit, that is, you're distinct from Peter, how can you really be whole? If there is you, and then there is Peter, how can you really be united? How can you really be whole? How can you be a unit? Isn't saying that you're an individual in itself division? If you say you are distinct from Peter, and that you are whole, and that you're a unit, but you're also different from someone else, do those two concepts, do those two things work together? How can you be whole united and yet separated from someone else. And if you're separated from someone else, isn't your mind divided? Isn't there division in your mind? Let's say that you're actually divided. How can you then be separate from anything? Because separation seems to mean, doesn't separation seem to mean that you are distinct from someone else, you're distinct from Peter, and that you are a unit, you're whole, and therefore not fractured. But if you're distinct, then how can you really be whole? How can you really be one? If you are not one, if you are not an individual, or better put, is there such a thing as an individual? Is the question to ask. Can you possibly be an individual? In fact, the question even better put is, does it even make sense to say that you are different from any other human being, distinct and separate from any other human being? Given that you being separate from other human beings, let's say you being separate from the community, implies that you're a whole and the community is separate from you, and that you're united, but at the same time you're divided because there is you and there's everybody else. Do those two concepts make sense? Do they work together really? Does division, you being separate from anything, anyone, or the community, does that even make any sense? If separation doesn't make sense, if the concept that you are different from anybody else, that you're an entity, a whole, an individual, if that concept doesn't make sense, if you can't possibly be an individual, what does that imply? Can there really then be distance between you and anybody else? Is there such a thing as you and Peter? If the difference between you and Peter doesn't exist, if the difference between you and the community doesn't exist, then who are you? Okay, we've been talking about difference between you and people, but how about the difference between you and an object? Can you be, let's say, distinct from the chair you're seated on? Let's say there's a chair in front of you. Are you separate from the chair? What would that mean for you to be separate from the chair? Would it mean that you're an individual and you're separated from the chair? That there's the chair out there and there's you over here, and the chair is not a part of you, it's separate from you. If that is true, if you're really separate from the chair and you're united, the question becomes, how can you really be united if there is you and there's the chair and you are separate from the chair? Isn't saying that you're separate from the chair in itself division? If saying that you're separate from the chair is division, how can you possibly be united? How can you possibly be an individual? How can you possibly be whole? So are we saying that there is no difference between you and the chair? Are we saying that you are the chair and the chair is you? Are we saying that you are the community and the community is you? Are we saying that there is no difference between you and all that is? If there is no difference between you and all that is, what would that imply? Would it mean that you are one, that there is no such thing as you, that the only thing that makes sense is all that is? In particular, if we talk about the community, what would that imply in terms of, if you are the community and the community is you, can you as an individual ever do anything? If you are sleeping, are you really sleeping? Or is everything sleeping? Is the entire community sleeping? If you are awake, are you awake or is the entire community awake? If there is no distinction between you and anything, if there is no distance between you and anything, what does that truly mean? If you are one with all that is, if you are all that is, what would the consequences be of you behaving like you're not one with all that is? If you are indeed the community, and the community is you, what would be the consequences of you behaving as if you are distinct, you are an individual distinct from the community? Would it make sense to, let's say, cause pain to others? Would it make sense to insult and hurt other people if they are you and you are them? What would it mean to punch yourself? If you are the community and the community is you, if you are everybody you meet and everybody you meet is you, does it make sense for you to be less intelligent than someone else? I mean, if they are you and you are them, how can you be less intelligent than them? Would that mean that you are less intelligent than yourself? Does that make any sense? Could you be smarter than any other person? Would that make any sense if the person you're talking to is you and you are that person? How can you possibly be more intelligent than yourself? How about trying to impress people so they can see how amazing you are? For instance, trying to impress people to show them how strong you are, how smart you are, how creative you are, how much money you have, how many possibilities you have, what a bright future you have, etc. We could pick any of those things. Let's say if you want to prove to people how stylish you are. If you are the people and the people are you, does it make any sense to prove to the people how stylish you are? Wouldn't that mean that you're proving to yourself how stylish you are? And what possible value could that have? How about your accomplishments? Let's say that you earned a lot of money, or you became a really great soccer player, or you became a really great dancer, or you became the absolute best in the world at whatever it is that you do. Could you ever be superior to a janitor? If the janitor is you, and you are the janitor, how can you possibly be superior to the janitor who is yourself? How many degrees would you need to become superior to yourself? Suppose you never learned how to read, never learned how to think, never learned anything really. Could you ever be inferior to anyone? Given that you are that person and that person is you, how can you be inferior to yourself? Does superiority really make sense then? To be superior to someone else, given that you are that person and that person is you? What is unity? Is unity the absence of separation? Is unity harmony? Is unity love? Let's focus on harmony for now. Is it possible to be disharmonious and still be united? If two things are not working in harmony, if you have a team and you're a member of a team, and you're doing one thing, the teammates are doing the other, or 5 members of the team are focusing on some mission and the remaining 3 are not. That is disharmony, isn't it? Can there then be unity if there is disharmony? Isn't unity harmony? If unity is harmony, is there such a thing as a purpose for your life? If you are the world and the world is you, if there is no distance between you and the world, if you are one with the world, is it possible for you not to have a purpose? What would it mean for you not to have a purpose? For your life to have no meaning? Wouldn't that mean that, better put, could the world be in harmony if you did not have a purpose? If you were just born randomly, basically no plan for your life, you have no point of being here, could you possibly be in harmony? If you are the world and the world is you, if you're in disharmony, could the world be in harmony? If the world is harmony, if distance doesn't make sense, can you possibly be in disharmony? If you can't be in disharmony, is it possible for your life to have no meaning? Is it possible for you to have no purpose in life? If you had no purpose in life, wouldn't that mean that the world is doing its own thing and you're doing your own thing? There is no common goal. There is no common mission for the world. There is everything. You at least have no mission, so you're just a lone operator in the world. There was no plan for you. Wouldn't that mean that if you had no purpose, wouldn't that mean that there is distance between you and the world? Because if there was no distance between you and the world, what would that mean? Wouldn't it mean that you are one with the world? Wouldn't it mean that you are the world and the world is you? If you are the world and the world is you, how can you possibly have no purpose? Is the statement even correct that you have purpose? Is purpose something that is outside of you? Or better put, if you are the world and the world is you, is there such a thing as purpose outside of the world? A world without purpose? If there is the world and there is no purpose in the world, doesn't that mean that there's distance between purpose and you? Because you have no purpose. But if there is no distance, how can there possibly be a distance between you and purpose? If there is no distance between you and purpose, what does that mean? Does it mean that you are purpose and purpose is you? What about love? Is it possible for you to have unity when there is hate? Is unity love? If you are angry at somebody, doesn't that mean that there is distance between you and that person? But if there is no such thing as distance, if there is no such thing as separation, how can it possibly make sense to be angry at someone else? If there is distance, how can you possibly have love? Isn't love the absence of distance? If love is unity, does hate make any sense? Does anger make any sense? Does division make any sense? What about trying to be better than someone else? I mean, this is what we're taught to do, right? You go to school, you take classes, you study really hard, and you want to be the top of the class. In particular, you want to be better than everybody else in the class. When you go to your workplace, you work really hard. You want to be the best employee. You want to be better than all of your colleagues. Why? Because that'll probably help you get promoted, etc. So it seems that the struggle is to be better than everybody else. But if there is no such thing as distance, and you are everybody, and everybody is you, does it make sense to try to be better than someone else? Is it even possible to be better than someone else? If everybody is you and you are everybody, how can you be better than yourself? What about dying empty? Dying empty is realizing your true potential, pushing to the limit, becoming the best you possibly can be. If you are the world and the world is you, if you are the community and the community is you, does it mean that when you die empty, the community dies empty too? If you push to your limits, does it mean that the community is also pushing to its limits? What if you don't die empty? What if you don't do the best you possibly can do? Does that mean that the community is not doing the best it possibly can do? Does that mean that humanity is performing below its potential? If you are the world and the world is you, what does self-help really mean? Is self-help really self-help? Or is self-help really community help? If you are the world and the world is you, is it selfish to improve yourself? Given that improving yourself is improving the community, and improving the community is improving yourself. What about the problems of the world? Hunger, bitterness, sorrow, corruption, theft, despair, disillusionment, war, disease, pain, suffering. Did other people cause these things? Is it the politicians that are corrupt? If you are the politicians and the politicians are you, is it politicians that are corrupt, or is it you that is corrupt? If another human being does something evil, did that human being do something evil? Or did you do something evil? If you are that human being and that human being is you. Is there such a thing as anything, any problem that you're not responsible for? If you are the world and the world is you, if you're the community and the community is you, are you responsible for every problem in the community? Is it your duty to solve every problem? Is there such a thing as not your problem if you are the community and the community is you? Alright, right, we've gone on for too long here. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast episode. Remember that this is really a podcast, and I'm your servant. My mission in life is to help men die empty. Or should I say, our mission in life is to help men die empty. To make sure that we die having used up all the potential that we have within us. To make sure that we solve the problems that we created. To make sure that we make the world a better place to live. And not just externally, but also internally. I mean, after all, is there really a difference between the external world and the internal world? If you have a question, if there is something holding you back, if there is something that is stopping you from dying empty, and basically stopping all of us from dying empty, please email me. It is my duty to help you and therefore help the world die empty. I'd be very happy to hear from you, to hear what the problems are that you're facing so that we can solve them and thereby realize our true potential and thereby transform the world. Thank you very much once again for listening and have a relentless week. Bye.